thank you so much for joining it and doing this today. My friend Lucy Fennings, a freelance editor in the UK.
Hi. Hello.
Hello, thank you so much. I want to, you were the one who really helped me decide that this was the project that we wanted to take on this year. And maybe you can share what the impetus was, why you started sharing all of this information about plastic pollution and what was the issue.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, about this time last year, I remember seeing a video online of a turtle in distress that was rescued by a couple of divers, and it had a plastic straw stuck up its nostril. And they went through this painful process of drawing it out with a pair of pliers, and it was really distressing. And
Saw that. It was
that
so
day,
upsetting.
it was just awful. And I thought just by eliminating this one item, we could make a huge difference. I read a statistic that there are, I think, an estimated 8.5 billion plastic straws used every day just in the UK alone.
I went and did a video with a movie theater chain here that you sit down and have dinner while you have the movie. And because they were doing No Straw April, and two theaters in Denver, and they said that they went through 50 to 80,000 straws per month per location. Because they would, you said, think about it. You sit down and you have a glass of water, and then you order a drink, and then a cocktail, and then maybe an after dinner drink, and all of a sudden you can end up with 2 to 6 straws per person per dinner. And so they stopped doing it because of public outcry.
I think it's interesting how that one item has sparked a kind of tidal wave of response from people. Not just but from there, as I said, I went into cafes and I started thinking about coffee cups, smoothie cups, and you look around you every day and all you see is people walking along with their smoothie in their hand, their slushy, their slurpee, their milkshake, their coffee, and it's plastic straws, plastic straws. As a grown woman, if I go to a bar and order a gin and tonic, I don't need a straw in my gin and tonic or my Pimm's, and yet it's just commonplace. It's just automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Bars and pop them in because that's what people want, or they
You
think that's.
almost can't get them not to put straws in. We request it now. We say, please, no straws. And the bartenders, it's so automatic, you can tell.
It's already in there before you've even had a chance to say, "Don't give me a straw."
Right.
And even in the pub chains that claim that they will only give a straw on request, it's hard to untrain staff who have it in the back of their mind. They're just, ice in, straw in, drink in. They're not thinking it through. And unfortunately, it's these little habits that are going to be so hard to break. So even with people, wanting to reduce plastics, the number of times I go I did it myself. Yesterday morning, I ordered an iced coffee and I was sitting in, so it came in a glass, and I thought, at least I'm not using the plastic cup, but it came with a straw. And I
Right.
just thought, it's very hard to get out of these little habits. And when you think that these habits have probably only accumulated in maybe the last 10 years, because when I was a kid, you didn't have to get to work without a coffee, a smoothie, a latte. You could actually negotiate yourself from A to B without needing a drink that you had brought from home.
So that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
The fact that we're all slurping on something every minute. But it's the habits, I think, that because of whether it's an individual habit or whether it's at the scale of a restaurant or at the scale of a chain of restaurants or at the scale of a large museum or public institution of some kind that serves thousands of people every day. I think it's an accumulation of small habits, and you and I were just showing off some of our things, and I want to go through them because
Who's got the best one?
who has the best one? You can change your habits, and that's what you and I are doing on a small scale. That's what we're doing with our families. So what kinds of things have you pulled out?
So I try to always leave the house with three things in my bag. The first of which is, because I too can't get from A to B without a coffee, my reusable coffee cup.
Yep.
It's by a brand called Keep Cup. They're really, really good. It doesn't spill because it's got a lid. That's one of the things that people complain about. And we have 4 or 5 of these now. So in the past where my excuse was maybe it was dirty. I don't have that excuse now because there's always one in the dishwasher and one in the cupboard clean. So I can just replace the dirty one with a clean one straight away. No problem. I also always have a reusable water bottle.
Yep, love those.
Great because it's if you can open it. Got a really big opening so you can put ice and fruit and mint and cucumber or whatever you want. So that makes it super tasty as well. So that's another incentive. And then I always have at least one or two of these little.
I love those. The ones I have the ones that snap together, so they just take up no room in your bag.
See, that's great. I don't understand people who say I don't have room in my bag. Okay, the water bottle's quite big and heavy, but so is a plastic, non-reusable one. It it's no heavier or more difficult. And the coffee cup is also not heavy or difficult. And actually, when it's clean, you can store your reusable bags in your
that's clever. Ooh, I like that.
I've actually seen some recently that are collapsible as well. So once you've finished using it, you can squish it down.
That's
and then
smart.
Back out. So no excuses.
Went online, Amazon, because everything comes from Amazon. Oh, I know. I'm sorry. And I found these wonderful little sets of silverware, and this is what I keep in my bag. I think I glitched there for a minute, but yeah, I keep this in my bag. Knife, spoon, fork, chopsticks, which
chopsticks.
Yeah, aren't they fabulous? And then
aren't they hard because they're slippery?
They work. No, because they have a little. You can't see here, but they have little lines at the end to give a little traction on the noodles, which is helpful. And then I have a metal straw that I had my husband cut down a little bit because it was long. It was too long to fit in this thing. But again, this is a little zip.
Oh, great.
Pouch. Because what's horrifying is the amount of plastic single-use silverware, cutlery.
Are you finding that everywhere where you live?
Everywhere.
I'm beginning to see a slight change now. So some of the bigger brands are introducing, bamboo or compostable single-use.
I do see compostable occasionally, but I know more often than not it's recycled or recyclable, which is great. It's a big improvement.
But who actually takes their plastic fork after their picnic to a recycling centre?
Right.
Nobody.
Right. Unless you sit like at Whole Foods, you can sit there, use the silverware, and then they have a recycling thing. But that's if you sit there and stay. Otherwise,
why are they providing you with disposable cutlery in the first place? Why not give you actual cutlery that they can wash and use? Yeah.
Yeah. So this we use all the time. And then I just found this the other day. I don't have one of these. I got this from my uncle because he has a Keurig single, the pod coffee machines.
Yeah.
And they go through those single pods one after the other. And so this is a reusable one where you can put your own coffee grounds in it.
That is so genius because the number of people I know who have an espresso machine or another pod coffee maker, and as you say, they're going through maybe a dozen capsules a day if they're a family.
Yes.
And some companies now have said that their capsules are recyclable, but again, who actually makes the effort to separate it into, is it aluminum? Is it plastic? Where does it go? How do I recycle it? And these little barriers, I think, are the thing that are making it harder for just normal everyday families to adopt a plastic-free life because there's just things, and people want convenience. So how do we go about changing that mindset?
Well, I think that's really it. I mean, you and I are both mothers and we, look at our children and the world that we're leaving and the decisions that we're making and the habits that we're building in our children. And, that's part of, like now, my kids will say, we're not going to get that because it's, in a plastic cup, or we don't need that, or we have our own silverware. I mean, they're starting to internalize that. And we've been doing this since the beginning of the year as a real project for work. But because of what you were sharing on your social media, and talk about the trip that you took to Sri Lanka. And I know that your partner is a diver and a sort of an outdoorsman, and he really has been sharing a lot of information about plastic in the oceans.
He is a keen surfer, which is one of the reasons we went to Sri Lanka, because it has, you know, incredible beaches and great surf. It's a beautiful country. And unfortunately, one of the things we noticed on a lot of the beaches were a lot of plastic bottles, straws, plastic bags, you know, all of it, either that had been washed up onto the shore from the sea or that had blown onto the beach from nearby roads and villages. Where we were staying, we actually went out each morning with a big bin liner and just filled it with plastic rubbish, at least to remove it from the beach. And I know that the Sri Lankan government is also working really hard now to raise awareness. They're going to introduce a plastics ban on single-use bottles, I think, and encourage people to recycle them by, I think there's a financial incentive. So I think you get, you know, 5p off each bottle when you return it. And there's a ban on plastic disposables on beaches. So it's interesting that kind of global awareness is impacting places that are most affected. But as any family knows, the last thing you want when you go far away to escape city life and everything is just loads of plastic. We even went snorkeling one day, and again, the area we were snorkeling in, there were loads of bits of plastic floating in the water, and it's just heartbreaking because you just think this is everywhere. It's not our problem, it's not their problem, it's everybody's problem because plastic is everywhere. So yes, that has been another trigger for us to try much harder as a family to look for ways that we can reduce our plastic usage, from shopping in the supermarket to recently I've started looking at ways that we can, because again, you start looking and plastic's everywhere. So I recently went out and bought these bamboo toothbrushes because there's so many toothbrushes everywhere. I have been looking for companies that make soap shampoo, because things like shower gel, shampoo, disposable razors, toothbrushes, you know, it affects every single part of daily life. And you just think about the volume that you're creating as one individual, never mind as a street or a village or a town or a city or a country. If everybody could make just one or two small changes, it would have such a big impact. And it does have to be driven from above by the bigger businesses who need to take responsible choices, and help their customers to make better choices too.
Well, I think you've landed on it. I think, you know, it's a compilation of small choices by individuals and then either trickling up or trickling down, depending on which way you look at it, from the larger businesses that either produce these materials or use a vast quantity of these materials. So I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate the emphasis that you brought to this project, because it was what triggered us at M&C to start thinking about this and think about what could we do, you know, in the small part of the world that we have influence in, to try to help and make it better. So I appreciate it.
Well, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to get involved, and to try and make more people take up the mantle to ditch the plastic.
Pitch the plastic. There's plenty of ways to do it. It's so, look, there's so many ideas and ways to do it you can't even
So
see
easy.
anymore.
I know.
Lucy, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.